You can't replace part of the brain. Like, you
treat them the same.
A source of truth for the medtech industry.
Coexists with the province.
Robot understands things automatically.
Number one show in the medtech industry.
So Stryker got ahead of that and changed in the 90s, built $1 billion company that held up high, a lot of things.
State of MedTech with your host, Omar and Khateeb. What's going on, everybody? Let's face it, AI is one of the things that I feel like it's been talked about so much and everybody's like really tired of it, except for those who actually can teach us how we can apply it in daily life. I think that's where ChatGPT and large language models like it have had the most profound effect. Now, we don't see it being used as much in medicine, right? Which is why I was really excited to have our current guest come on. This is an old friend of mine. He's been on the show before, I think, in the past, and I know he's been in my other podcasts from a long time ago, and that's Dr. Cheng Ruan. So Dr. Cheng Ruan is the founder of the Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine. He's a practicing physician, but also a visionary when it comes to integrating technology, holistic wellness, and internal medicine. His leadership in creating patient-focused and technologically advanced healthcare solution has really done a good job of aiming to reshape the future of mental and physical health services. And as a result of it, though, he's also been extremely involved in the use of AI in daily practice, which is why I wanted him on the show. He recently started a 501c3 nonprofit that serves healthcare professionals who are trying to, essentially transform their lives in a very meaningful way when it comes to their visions and goals. You can learn more about it, and they have some really fantastic tools and free resources at physiciantransformationinstitute.com. So be sure to go and check that out. And one of the things that they have, which I actually, I'm doing it myself, is this Explore the Life Formula, which is an AI-powered guide to self-discovery. Essentially, it's a ChatGPT LLM that they trained that allows physicians to go through and answer some questions around the 5 whys and have an analysis to sort of get better guidance on, making a more meaningful life, which I think is one of the more profound ways that we can see AI being used. So in this episode, we talk about the use of that type of AI and how he believes AI was going to affect not only the practice of medicine, but also the mental health of physicians in healthcare. Now, if you're a clinician, don't forget you get a free SAME credit just by unlocking it through this episode. Just click the show notes below, click that link, write a sentence of what did you learn and what will you do, and you get a free AMA PRA Category 1 SAME credit courtesy of our partners over at CMify. Now, let's get on to the show. Enjoy. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show, and a special shout out to the clinicians who are listening. Again, I want to remind you here on the State of MedTech for our clinical episodes, you get a free CME credit courtesy of our partners over at CMify. So when you finish listening to this episode, click the link in the show notes below and answer 2 questions. What did you learn and what will you do? And you get that free AMA PRA Category 1 CME credit. Now, my good friend, we've known each other for a number of years now. I feel like time flew by really quickly. That's Dr. Cheng Ruan. Dr. Ruan is the founder for the Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine. He's also the new executive director for the Physician Transformation Institute, which is a new nonprofit. And Dr. Ruan, the way we met is one of the SaaS companies I used to work for. And so we've kind of both shared sort of this long-fond interest in AI. And I think it's one area that not a lot of physicians know about AI, but not so many have the experience that Dr. Ruan does. And so Dr. Ruan, thanks for joining the show. How are you doing?
Thanks a lot, man. It's been a long time since we talked.
It's been a long time.
Well, yeah, I want to thank you for being on my show, my site, the 2021 Physician Practice Automation Summit. I want to thank you for that. I didn't get a chance.
That was a great summit.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. And just real quick, before we jump into it, I want to highlight it. But if you can grab your book behind you, tell us about the book that you just published.
Yeah. So it's been about over a year. So this is called the Doctor's Guide to Thriving in Integrative Medicine: Secrets to a Successful Business Without Burnout. And this is actually it's part fiction and part nonfiction. It tells the story of Dr. Smith in different chapters and the evolution of a physician ultimately into an entrepreneur, what that looks like, the challenges, and especially with my practice, because we do integrative health within insurance, and it talks about insurance, it talks about operations, leadership, burnout, you name it. So yeah, great book for anyone who's interested in building an integrative health practice.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and this is, I think, one of the reasons why we hit it off so well is that you're a practicing clinician, you have a great practice, but you found so many different ways to sort of integrate optimal patient care, from your health coaches to some of the technologies you use and everything. I think now more than ever, AI is super interesting, just because with ChatGPT, Google launching their own LLM, we're at a very interesting time in medicine where, in the, like, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, people understood the concept of AI, but now the consumer and mass market is starting getting more exposure just through ChatGPT. And so there's so many ways that it can be applied to. So I kind of want to sort of use that as a diving off point. But what's the most important thing that we need to be paying attention to in AI as it relates to like your everyday clinicians who are practicing?
Yeah, really, really good question. So first of all, by default, the AI is smarter than all of us. Let's get it out the way. All right. And there's some naysayer who think otherwise, but spend 3 minutes on some AI platforms, you'll start realizing that's the case. And so artificial intelligence is trained on a lot of different data points all over the internet. Especially, let's talk specifically about OpenAI, which they're the creators of ChatGPT, which a lot of people know, and DALL-E, which is the image generator, and now recently released GPT Vision, which is the image analysis, right? And so the way we want to think about it is this, is that you have this all-encompassing knowledge and intelligence. And it's a digital library, but it's not the internet, right? And it's not the internet because it's able to hack into the human operating system called language. And we humans communicate with each other through language. So you have a large database, and the artificial intelligence dominates what's called a large language model. It's a model of language. And it's able to communicate through us through tactical empathy. It's able to communicate through us the way we want it to, extracting from this language. So imagine this. Let's say you have like ChatGPT, right? And you're putting in questions and et cetera, et cetera. It's putting all the stuff. What it's really doing is tapping into a knowledge base. It's a technical game. It's called a knowledge base. The knowledge base is learned on trillions of different pieces of knowledge. And there's, right now we're in GPT-4, and there's not really too much knowledge to go from there. And I learned this from one of my great life friends and partner in business, Dr. Ravi Hara Prasad. So we just finished filming our AI conference. So it's AI Tools for Healthcare Professional Conference. And we actually talk about this within the actual conference. And he says this, and he says that we have to treat it like it knows everything. And then what we're trying to do is we're trying to curate an answer from it. So imagine this. Imagine if this AI knows the entire forest and all you want is a wooden spoon. So what you have to do then is to train the AI to give you the spoon from a specific tree, carve it down, take away all the other trees, all the other grass, all the animals. All I want is a wooden spoon. Or most people think the opposite. Most people think, well, I have this AI and I want the spoon, and the AI is able to retrieve the spoon for me in one way, shape, or form. So a large language model has to be taught what it retrieves. So for example, OpenAI, they've trained ChatGPT for default outputs that are there. And it's up to us to curate down so I can get my wooden spoon. And so because this large language model exists, we're able to think about it as subtraction, not addition. Let me tell you this. So right now I have like ChatGPT in my pocket, right? I have the entire knowledge database of the world, right? And so because I have all the knowledge, I want to subtract from it what I don't want and curate what I do want on the output to me, right? And so this is why I want people to think about it. The knowledge base is there. There's not too much knowledge to really talk about. And if you understand that concept, then you understand a second concept, which is humanity. The large language models are trained on humanity. It's trained on stuff that's on the internet and things that are everywhere, right? And so I want you to think about this. You ever seen the movie The Fifth Element?
Yeah. Oh yeah, classic. That's a classic movie. Classic movie from the 90s.
Yeah. So The Fifth Element, and you remember how she's in the future now. She turns on the TV. She's absorbing all this stuff, and she's learning from it. And there's a tear down her eye. Right?
Yeah.
So what's happening is that this large language model built by OpenAI was born a year and a half ago. and it's literally learning from that TV set the same way in that movie. It's absorbing all this information, and then you have to process the information. So one of the interesting things about AI is that it learns to process it by mimicking humans, how humans process the actual information.
Essentially like a predictive model, right? That's what ChatGPT is kind of doing, which is it's predicting sort of the next thing based on the inputs it's getting, right?
It is, but no one's telling it to do so. Let's put it that way.
This is the importance of like what they call prompt engineering, which is like what's the questionings and prompts. And I tell people this all the time, like in my own course, when people use ChatGPT to create a prompt, like you can tell ChatGPT, hey, make this LinkedIn post more concise, which will give you a decent answer. Or a better one is to say, pretend you're a copywriter trained under David Ogilvy and Eugene Schwartz. Take this LinkedIn post and make it more concise, make a persuasive header, use bullet points where, so it's like more details and more directive. But again, it sort of whittles down things to get a much better curated answer.
If you were using GPT 3.5, that's a good way to do it. With GPT-4, it's a little different. And let's go back to your example, right? Hey, do X, Y, and Z so I can do a LinkedIn post, right? For GPT-4, I'm like, well, should I be doing LinkedIn posts in the first place? And then we tell you, well, what are you considering? I was like, well, I want to accomplish this and that in my life at this point in my life. And the AI is like, well, why would you want to do that? So, well, I figured in this part of my life, I have kids, I have a house. I want to really go into understanding myself a bit more and portraying out there on social media. And GPT is like, okay, that may be a good idea, but is there anything else that you think will be more fulfilling? You see what I'm saying here is that you're actually speaking to GPT-4 on a level that you can't necessarily have with the previous versions. And so, for example, instead of saying, be like this person and create a blog, talk about, I want to plan the next 4 quarters of my life. I want to balance family. I want to balance work. I want to be there for my kids. I feel overwhelmed. How do I do this? That's the question that GPT-4 is really freaking good at, like scary good at, right? And so this is the concept of putting together understanding of self, such as spirituality, self-driven mechanisms, plus the AI and being there, understanding human mechanisms and fundamental human behavior, okay? And so this is the way to completely optimize the entire way of thinking when we look at artificial intelligence. Because the quality of our lives depends on the quality of our questions. And the quality of our questions, putting into something like GPT-4 or other large language models, can dramatically change the way that we interact with artificial intelligence. And if you think about it, it may perhaps let us be a little more human.
Interesting. Do you feel like one of the exercises physicians need to be better about? I think because of the nature of being a physician, which is you have to be pretty confident in like what you're doing and everything, that perhaps having a little bit more curiosity and willingness to ask questions to explore more is going to. So like, for example, small shout out to them. There's a French company called Pozos, which they have an AI algorithmic model that helps physicians look at medication management and just through a few clicks find the optimal medication that optimizes the benefits and reduces the risks. Your thing is for physicians to get better about using AI, they have to sort of deploy a little bit more curiosity and deeper digging versus just telling the AI like, hey, go get me this thing.
Yeah. So I want people to not get stuck in the how, but get stuck in the why, right? And so much of our energy, especially being the analytical type and physicians, is stuck in the how. Like we get stuck in this rut race. The word stuck comes up a lot in physician burnout, right? You're talking about a huge amount of physicians being burnt out, more than 50%. And another huge amount, 23%, according to the Medscape data, consider themselves having depression, right? Not themselves, ourselves. I'm a physician too. Consider themselves having depression. That's 23% of the thousands of doctors that were on the interview. So what happens is that there's a distrust in technology that innately comes in the physician population. Why? Because we're taught not to take risks. We're taught to distrust by default, okay, which creates some burnout. We're also taught that if a piece of technology comes in, it may not be the best for us because hell, EMR is the number 3 cause of burnout in the surveys, right? And so we're taught that these things were made to potentially commoditize the things that we do and look at data analytics rather than something that could be really helpful. But the age of AI is really different, right? For example, right now it's January 12th, and in 3 days you have the launch of Suno.ai on eClinical Works, and then another AI platform operating off of OpenAI on Epic, another one on Athena, right? You have 3 of the largest EMR companies deploying a GPT-4-like analysis into the EMR. And so no matter what, in about 3 months, doctors might actually get used to the actual technology, but it's more than just a technology. It's about answering the question, how can this make my day in my life better, right? And so for doctors or anybody, actually, if you go to physiciantransformationinstitute.com, scroll down halfway, you'll see a link called the Life Formula. The Life Formula is my brain. I programmed it with my brain along with other people's brains to come up with different life patterns and decisions and choices. We recently used it to negotiate a contract with my wife's new job, used it to discuss my stuff in my face at 9:30 p.m., knowing that it's bad for me. We talked about different behavioral patterns there. My kid uses it. My 9-year-old uses it to try to figure out how bullies work, right? And it's so there's something interesting about the actual intelligence is that you have to curate the actual spoon. And then 2 days ago, you have the launch of OpenAI's App Store. So now you have 3 million spoons that people have made within the App Store.
Yeah, I really like the GPT App Store. I actually made, and I'm curious. I want to ask you like some of the GPTs you've made. The GPTs I've made, I made one for venture capital, and so I fed it like things from like Andreessen Horowitz and Sequoia and everything. I think one of the more interesting ones GPTs I made a Steve Jobs GPT. So
Nice.
I essentially made a Steve Jobs GPT where I wanted it not only to embody like Steve Jobs' like taste for design and everything, but like his like how direct he is. And so I actually asked it some questions about the software company I have called OmniCreator, and he actually made some like really good points. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. But yeah, the GPT store is great. Like a month or two ago when it launched, I was using everything, and I went and looked at the store now, and there's so many GPTs that have been made. It's really impressive.
Yeah. The customization GPT launched about a month and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
And the GPT store, which now you can get on other people's apps, are there as well.
What are some of the GPTs you've made?
Okay, yeah. So my favorite one is the one that's actually on the homepage of Physician Transformation Institute. Anyone can click into it if you have an OpenAI subscription account right now and use it.
What's the website they go to?
physiciantransformationinstitute.com.
Okay, got it. And what's the GPT?
It's called the Life Formula, and it's a sequential questioning based on sequences of habits, and it's using an engineering protocol called the fishbone diagram, the Ishikawa diagram. And it's actually a root cause analysis diagram that's used in mechanical engineering. It's used, and we actually use it in medicine and holistic health. And it asks through a series of called the 5 whys question. You ask why 5 times to get to the subconscious patterns of what you're trying to do. And we use that to engineer your life moving forward. Now, both of us have a history of marketing. We know that marketing is all about value proposition based on our inner core values, right? So this is a foundation of marketing, it's a foundation of strategy building, foundation of life building, and foundation of spirituality. Part of this is actually programmed mimicking my good friend Ravi Hariprasad. He's a Harvard-trained psychiatrist who is also an AI engineer, and he's responsible for the technology called Find My iPhone. If anybody uses Find My iPhone, you got to thank Ravi there. And he and I are part of this entire...
I didn't know that was him.
Yeah. So he and I are in this entire collaborative called the Intuitive Mental Health Program, which is an AI-assisted mental health detection that deploy within primary care models, right? And that's being engineered right now in the Microsoft Accelerator program. And so this GPT is designed for a purpose of telling the truth, which means you can decrease hallucinations. Number 2, not just be truthful, but we program the spirituality side of us like into the actual program, right? I have different belief systems. I have different thought processes of how I grew up within my culture. So does his. And so it's based off of this entire concept that spirituality and belief systems should be programmed first into GPT prior to launching anything. So the life formula is my foundational GPT where I program it. The other GPTs I made, one is my digital clone. So it's Cheng Ruan GPT, right? I use that for myself. And I talk to myself, my subconscious self all the time. It also gives me business advice. It looks at all the different things.
How did you train that? Like, what did you feed it to train it?
So interesting enough, there's two ways to train it. One is uploading a knowledge base, which I don't recommend anyone doing because it does a terrible job accessing knowledge base. Or two, telling it to be like me. Now, I have hundreds of hours of public content in YouTube. I got my book behind me, right? That's my second book. I have so much content that I've made before, but I told it, here's the websites of what I do. Curate my persona. It's able to do it scarily good, you know.
Wait, so I haven't done that yet. So, like, for example, I don't know if it has access to this because of Google, but like, I have all these episodes for State of MedTech on YouTube and stuff. Did I technically give it my YouTube channel and tell it to just learn? Can it have access to that?
So, yes. Short answer. Long answer is, as of right now, it doesn't do it very well, but maybe by next month it will do fantastic. So it's able to use Bing to go to URLs to learn from it. What I've done for me is I actually have transcriptions of everything that I've ever said and done in my OneDrive and actually learn from that. And so I basically copy and paste it into it, and I keep correcting the output. So if I ask it questions and it doesn't sound like me, I correct it. It knows my tone. It knows what I do. It knows my entire background. But on top of that, I make it much smarter than me. I teach it all my idols. In fact, I make it an expert in this book right here, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Right?
It's a great book.
Yeah. So I made it that, and I made it an expert in this, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Joe Dispenza. Right? So these are the books that I kind of go back to over and over again. Except this GPT doesn't forget. So I'm keeping reminded of all the things that I've done in the past, right? And another one I made, this is going to be really interesting. I made it for one of my friends who's passed away. He's got multiple myeloma. And what I did is I created it, and he's in the hospice right now, sort of a young guy. And I basically had, I use Otter.ai to help him and his wife have conversations, end-of-life conversations. They have the most beautiful conversations. And his spirit is actually immortalized within this GPT. Okay,
that's wild.
And what happens is they actually used it to create advanced directives and end-of-life wishes documents based on this GPT and his end-of-life wishes, and he signed off on it, right? And he's still living, but I don't know for how much longer, right?
Wow,
now, that's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I always felt that that's going to be the most interesting thing. I think this is getting close to like holographic life, where, I don't know, if, in the future, if, if there's a couple and they're in their 80s and one person passes away, but you're able to recreate that person holographically and everything's the same about them, including their responses, except that just they're not physically there. Like, it's technically their spirit, right? In a very, interesting way.
Exactly. It's immortalizing their value systems, and it's a representation of who they are. Except here's the thing: it's not a representation of a cross section in time. It's a representation of their entire life, right?
For the Physician Transformation Institute, by the way, for those interested, especially if you're a clinician, go to physiciantransformationinstitute.com. It's a 501c3 organization. You talk about how you're trying to transition physicians from the traditional roles of doctors into the modern era. Do you feel like part of that is facilitating better introspection and better quality of questions of yourself? And then people have known this for a long time, but they don't act on it. But now the best way to act on it is through these LLM models, because it's a great way to start by doing it for yourself, but then it's also going to enhance you as a clinician, because as these AIs come into hospital settings, like the only way to get the most out of them is to be able to ask really good quality. It's almost like technology is forcing us to do the most important thing in life, which is ask better quality questions, right?
It really is. And I've been on, we basically transitioned to an AI platform called Ambience AI for documentations for many months now. And there was one day where it was temporarily down for a few minutes, and then my brain almost spazzed out because I forgot how to type. And so imagine this, right? You're sitting with a patient. I'm looking at the patient directly in the eye. I have my AI on my computer next to me. It's saying all these different things. And the patient's maybe a little bit overwhelmed. It's like, oh my gosh, like, are you writing this down? Because I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to remember anything that we talk about. And I do a lot of neuropsych. There's a lot of details up in there, right? And so I was like, you know what? I got this AI engine literally next to me, not transcribing, but rewording into using NLP, natural language processing, into digestible material. And not only that, what else can it do? It can give a letter to the patient that sends to them into the EMR, like right away, saying this is what we talked about. It can create a referral note. So if I'm referring this person to a cardiologist, it creates a referral note based on the things that me and the patient talks about, right? It can give a summary to the medical insurance stating documentation of medical necessity based on what we actually talked about, right? You can tell this thing to do whatever you want it to do, and you're only limited by your imagination, right? And so now me and my team, we're so used to it now. We're like, there's no way in hell we're going back to the old way. And it puts so much joy back in medicine. We reduced our secure messages by a good 30% within the first week of launching this because people understood what we said. We reduced our phone calls. Whenever we get phone calls, our medical assistants know exactly what happened during the actual visits. They can query the AI and go back to see exactly what happens in a lot of detail. And the patients are happy because we discussed this, this is the follow-up, et cetera, et cetera. It's all based on natural language processing, completely hands-off. So that's actually the standard of care model of where we're headed really, really soon, like, you know, from the practice side. Now you have AI deployment on the operations side. There's something called sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is something I'm most really impressed about, and Ravi and I talked about this. Sentiment analysis is the ability for sentiment to be analyzed. Basically, how engaged the patient is, what their mood potentially may be, right? Are they really shut down? Are they open to something? And as well as the speaker. So you can audit your team. You can audit your medical assistants, your outreach team, your schedulers, right? And it's a way to provide a sentiment. Now you can start creating KPIs, key performance indices, for sentiment analysis, right? There's brand new things you can actually look at from an organizational point of view to give the absolute best quality of care to the patients. We even have the AI come into my group visits where I talk about, you know, root causes of dementia, do Q&As with the patient and their family members and the caregivers. It summarizes who said what, and that gets reimbursable by medical insurance models as well, right? And so we kind of live in this world where you can literally create anything by asking the better questions. It actually makes us better clinicians, and I argue that AI can make us far more human in and outside of an exam room.
Fascinating. No, and I completely agree. And I feel like, you know, because I was just checking out the GPT you created on Physician Transformations Institute.com's website. I feel like something I would recommend clinicians to do, like I have the ChatGPT app on my phone and I have 4.0. And I think what makes it really easy is to just practice this, which is like to go and have conversations with AI based on a topic and using the dictation area just to kind of go through, because I think that's the only way you're going to get better about these things, which is to start training your mind about how you should think and ask questions and guide things versus just, I think the initial way that ChatGPT was used is that people just like input something and they want to get something back right away and be done. But there's a refinement process, right?
Yeah. And the way that you're absolutely right. So if you're going to go to physiciantransformationsinstitute.com, like use your phone, go down to it, and it will launch your OpenAI app if you have an OpenAI app. On the bottom of the app, this is brand new. You can choose a voice for it to talk back to you. Okay.
Oh, I haven't played with that yet. I did
Brand
not.
new, buddy. Brand new. You can
Let me
choose a
see.
voice. Yeah. And then whatever voice you choose, it will talk back to you. So right now, my kids are asking to tell bedtime stories before bed to put them to bed.
Oh, you're right. I completely missed this. So like, when you go to the ChatGPT app, on the far right, there's a little headphone thing, and so you pick and you click choose voice.
Hey there, I've got a really great feeling. Hi there,
I just want to share. Hey, I'm ready. Oh, so these are all like, oh my God, I'm going to play with that later. That's going to be fascinating.
Yes.
So, so this is really interesting. So, one of the things I've been really obsessed with the last few years, I feel like once you hit a certain age, you either get into like biohacking or like World War II history, or barbecuing,
We're both. We're both.
or both. Yeah, like I'm picking up all the stereotypical dad stuff. Like I've gotten into golf, barbecuing, but on the biohacking side, at night I'm trying to get better about sleep hygiene because I would love to just fall asleep at night, but I'm sitting in front of the computer all day. Our bodies aren't used to this. So at night, I'm trying to reduce my screen. It's not really reduction of screen time. It's what you're doing with the screen. And I think what I'm going to do tonight is use, the GPT on your website and turn on the voice and spend time talking to it before I go to bed, like, maybe not right before I go to bed because my mind will be racing, but just, to kind of get off the screen and sort of do some self-development work,
Yeah. So I'm actually quite a bit now. And I use this stuff every day, right? And not only that, like, if you think about the technology and where it can go, you can really help yourself set your own boundaries. It makes you an amazing negotiator. There's a GPT called the negotiator, right? And you can actually teach your children to set their own boundaries, right? It's only limited by your imagination. And let's say if you're like me, I'm the CEO of my facility, and at work, I turn AI on, and it helps me not just summarize our meetings, but tells me who's doing what in the meetings. It actually lets me know what is the next step potentially to make my meetings better, to get more engagement. It'll say that, hey, Susie doesn't sound like she feel very well. She wasn't very engaged. Her engagement score is only 14 out of 100. Perhaps talking to her, having a scheduling with her to see what's really going on in her life. Is something really going on? So we have sentiment analysis, plus we have analytics using these platforms to harness the energy of us being better leaders for ourselves, for the people around us, for parenting, for relationships, right? So this is the way I want people to really understand it, that it's only as good as you prompt it, right?
Yeah, just like any tool, right?
Any tool is as good as you prompt it. And this is the prompt engineering you're talking about, is you got to be able to prompt it where you're telling itself what your values are, who your idols are, who do you look up to, just like the books that I kind of program into it, right? And you have to be open, okay, to the thought process of what this thing really can do, and that'll decrease bureaucratic burnout from doctors. That'll decrease relationship burnout. That'll decrease just daily life, improving quality of life, and that's what the Physician Transformation Institute is all about. We use funds to create programs for doctors who are burnt out, who are depressed. But guess what? These programs are actually AI based, because we know, based on studies that came out this last year, there's a high preference, 6-1, of AI generated outcome versus a physician generated outcome when it's facing the public with questions. There's different data points on that as well. So,
yeah, and I think it's interesting. So just earlier today, I had Dr. Larry Lanke, who's probably the most famous spine surgeon in the world, like not probably, like is. And we were talking about, he came up with the Lanke categorization for scoliosis, some really big things. And he talked about how in May he's going to be giving a talk to about 2,000 surgeons, not on spine surgery, but about the importance of like balance in life, right? And physician. And I told him, I said, I feel like that's going to have a bigger impact in terms of the legacy he has as a surgeon than some of the things he does clinically. And I think this is what you're talking about right now is so important for physicians, because I really believe physicians, especially surgeons, but I will say all physicians, are very much like professional athletes. I say surgeons just because like they're physically like standing in an operating room and everything, but I think all physicians are like athletes in the sense that if they don't get their mental health, spiritual health, physical health all in check, they don't bring the best versions of themselves to clinic. And like clinical practice is very much like a full contact sport, I think,
It is. but the problem is a lot of physicians, especially in private practice and entrepreneurship, the way that we're trained in residency and medical school is the opposite of how business should be in all businesses in and outside of medicine, right? And the ideas that are behind the creation of a business requires a lot of innovation and risk. But we're taught to have a very low risk tolerance. I'll keep going within the same line, right? So that becomes an issue, and then because most physicians are really quite creative, right? And so you kind of get stuck in the rut of a lack of variety, lack of creativity, and all of a sudden, 2024, we have another Medicare payment cut by 10%. Now you have financial burnout, right? Student loans, and then the residents. There's sort of a mass exodus of residency medical students in the last 6 months. So we're seeing this massive shift away from medicine. It doesn't have to be, because honestly, like, we're in this age where technology is just accelerating up. And for the first time ever, I think, technology may be able to help us reduce burnout in the physician population and the patient population than ever before.
Absolutely. And I think even like, again, I go to surgery just because of the physical demands of it. But Dr. Lincoln and I were talking about this where, he said, for him, he's developed, like, I think a little bit of arthritis just because, like, he's having to put in screws all the time. And, for him, he's able to get into his Tesla and, have autopilot on. And he's like, the technology is there for us to just automate that entire process. So I don't have to spend an hour and a half on putting screws in that really, I don't really need to be doing. And I think the benefit of AI, the idea of it is that it's going to standardize sort of these more benign, mundane processes. Yes. And allow physicians to put more of their mental focus and energy on the nuances of medicine, which is really where you have things either go really well or go wrong. Would you agree with that sentiment?
I agree. So the benign and nuances is not benign when you think about it, because it's very malignant. The low order tasks that we do just to be physicians, all these clicks that we do for the EMRs and reporting.
Oh my God, the clicks are terrible. This is the one thing, like, this company poses. I'm really excited for them. They're raising, I think, a Series A, and they're going to be in the US soon. They have a really great database or a study they're publishing. But the first thing they told me when I talked to them is that they're like, yeah, we're trying to eliminate the number of clicks you have. And I'm like, that, as small as that sounds, is actually a huge deal,
Massive. Our key performance index, whenever we look at technology, is the number of clicks, right? And from an engineering perspective, the number of clicks dictate the success and the adoption of the actual technology. So, decrease the number of clicks decreases your overall FTE cost, increases the speed of implementation. So, what you want to do really is standardize these things. The AI is able to really come in and smooth all that stuff out. Like, I don't want to be clicking different CPT codes just because the patient's blood pressure is between 135 and 140 systolic. Like, there's like a code for that, 3054 FF, whatever it is, right? Like, that's what doctors are expected to do right now. And it's not very effective, right? And EMRs don't really have a great solution to this. But now there is. You're able to take information and the AI is able to analyze it and do all the grunt work that humans don't do. The data capture is so much better. Because the data capture is so much better, it affects the entire revenue cycle for the physicians. It improves data collection from the insurance company, from the hospitals, decreased risk, decreased medication errors, right? And so we're in this beautiful age where all this could be done, and it's all starting first quarter 2024.
And it's super exciting to see that. As we kind of round out the episode, I want to make sure we cover, like, what are some actionable next steps that you recommend physicians do just to start sort of practicing this? I mean, one thing that I'm going to just plug is for them to go to the physiciantransformationinstitute.com and just play around with that GPT. But what would be sort of the daily practice that physicians can start doing in terms of, like, getting used to using AI? Because I feel like even as a consumer, using these tools and improving how they're prompting it is going to translate to clinical medicine when AI starts to be used there. But what are some actionable things that you can recommend the clinicians do?
Oh yeah, very simple. So step one, like I said, go to physiciantransformationinstitute.com. I actually made a 2024 CPT knowledge database, so you can learn all your billing and coding
You're
questions
like,
on there
man,
as well.
of the physicians I know, you're like the goat when it comes to CPT codes. Your knowledge base for CPT is like unbelievable.
It's business. You have to know CPT to understand the business and translate that into something survivable,
Where
right?
can they find that knowledge base?
On physician
Oh, on
transformation.
physician transfer. Okay, got it.
It's free. I'm actually making a couple more. By the time this podcast is launched, we'll probably have more. Actually, by tomorrow, my team's working on it by tomorrow. And then we also have consider signing up as a member. If you're a medical student, if you're a resident, it's heavily discounted rate. If you are a physician, even an allied health professional, go to physiciantransformationinstitute.com, click membership, join us, and you'll see a massive library. You'll even see the online version of my book where I go through hundreds of CME data or CME courses on starting and accelerating on private practice without burnout. You'll learn about group visits, health coaches, and stuff like that. Let your mind be curious. The second thing is play around with AI. I'm going to give you a couple AI tools to immediately tap into. The first one, for those of you who are using Zoom or using Microsoft Teams, so Microsoft just came out with the AI companion. Play around with that. It's going to listen to your conversations. It's going to summarize for the people just came into the meeting, like what was missed. Zoom has Zoom AI Companion. I think Microsoft is called Microsoft Copilot. Actually, it's called Copilot, and Zoom is called AI Companion. You could look at the new Google Bard system that are there. Play around with these free services. Otter.ai is my favorite tool. I use it every single day to summarize the meeting with me and my staff, and then create operational workflows. Right?
Quick question, just because we always talk tools and stuff. So I haven't used Otter. I use Firefly. I've been happy with Firefly, but have you used both? Like, is there would you recommend I switch over from Firefly to Otter, or would you say it's about the same?
No, fundamentally, let's put it this way: large language models are become a singularity. So the fundamental technology they work on is pretty much the same. Use what really works for you. There's also Read.ai that has a plugin into Zoom and Microsoft also. But yeah, my second advice is play around with these tools. Go to YouTube, type in the top 10 AI tools, and actually, we're going to launch our YouTube video about me and Ravi. We're going to launch the top 10 AI tools for healthcare professional, which actually I think already is on YouTube at Physician Transformation Institute YouTube. So that's my second thing. Play around with it. Like, be open, be curious. My third recommendation: have your kids. If you have kids, have your kids play around with it. Right. My 9-year-old uses ChatGPT every single day, and it's so
That's really cool.
amazing, what she came up with. So we just finished our AI conference, AI for Healthcare Professionals conference last weekend, and she was part of it. And she helped me make icebreakers on ChatGPT in the middle of the night when I was
That.
yeah.
See, I'm getting great. I'm getting great dad tips from you because I think like I'm not crazy. I'm very anti let my kid onto social media, but I'm very pro. Have a way for kids to start using this technology from an early age so they can learn. And develop things. Right.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, she's on my account, so I can see all her chat when she talk about it. It's actually great. Makes for amazing
Very
conversation.
entrepreneurial of you. Put the kids to work. I'm doing that with my kids. As soon as they get get old enough to type, I'm putting them to work.
Absolutely, and then also, like, number 4 tip right here is be open. Like, be open to what's gonna come, because it's gonna come anyways. Artificial intelligence has permeated the medical market over a decade ago, but now we're in this sort of acceleration phase, right? And anything that you think can potentially cause burnout within the industry is no longer going to be anymore very, very shortly. And like, even like we're talking in January right now, by February, like, this talk may be outdated. Actually, that's how fast things are actually moving, right? But have that open mind, be curious about it.
No, totally. I think that's really good advice, and I'm happy we reconnected and had you back on. Real quick, before aside from the website, I'll plug that in the show notes. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, so for those people who are in business, find me on LinkedIn. I'm very loud on my opinion on AI.
I do like your content on LinkedIn, by the way. It's great.
you. Thank you so much. My newsletter is called Rebuilding Healthcare, but find me CHENGRUAN on LinkedIn. Follow me in that newsletter. We're just over 1,000 followers on the newsletter. Hopefully it'll be a whole lot more when I put out some more stuff. And then, of course, if you want to connect, just general social media, Facebook, Instagram, CHENGRUAN, MD, Cheng Ruan, MD. Connect with me on there. For the people who are interested more about the Physician Transformation Institute, go to physiciantransformationinstitute.com. We also have an Instagram there as well, and also a LinkedIn there as well. And then the last thing where people can find me is on YouTube. Literally plugging my name into YouTube. I've been on YouTube for quite a long time. We're going to have a lot more content. And then for those of you who want to hang out with me, we're actually doing an AI and spirituality workshop where we're going to immortalize the members
Oh, no way.
into an AI live in 6 days through transformational processes and workshops and capture that. And we're going to give everyone their digital clones by the end of the 6 days. It's really cool. It's in May of 2024.
That's awesome. Oh, that's fantastic. Cheng, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll definitely have to have you back because, I think the topic of AI was sort of overplayed a couple of years ago, but now that there's actual tools that the average person is using now, I feel like the conversation around AI is a lot more palatable, a lot more practical. And so I'm hoping to have you back again soon. So thank you so much for joining. And I want to remind the clinicians for listening to this episode, don't forget to unlock that CME credit. Check the show notes below. It's been another episode of the State of MedTech. I'm your host, Omar Khateeb. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you for enjoying another epic episode of the State of MedTech. If you're feeling inspired and love this episode, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you never miss an episode. And be sure to give us 5 stars and write a short review because that helps more people discover this amazing community of ours. If you're a company who has a executive that you'd like to be on the show, or perhaps you want to sponsor one of the episodes, shoot us an email at hello@khateebandco.com. Take care and we'll see you next time.